Hello, I'm Amitha Balachandra. There's a very interesting conversation coming up. And before I introduce my guest to you, let me tell you a story. The story is of Dr. Sharath Ponnappa and Sundeep Dosanjh, who got married on the 25th of September in California. Now, the wedding was beautiful, it was filled with love, and there were two ceremonies. On the 25th, the couple wed in a Sikh Punjabi ceremony, and on the 26th, they wore a traditional Kodava attire. Now, soon after this, pictures were circulated on social media, and some members of the Kodava community did not take too well to this. Reactions that came in initially were a little homophobic, and later a clarification came in from the president of Madikeri Kodava Samaj saying that they were only questioning the traditions that were followed in the wedding. But there were others who pointed out that these views are basically homophobic, that they're denying the couple's rights, and that they don't understand what the fuss is all about. To have that conversation with me, I have the beautiful couple join me right now, Dr. Sharath Ponnappa and Sundeep Dosanjh. Thank you so much for making time. First of all, congratulations on your wedding. And I know right now that all of us are in different time zones. I'm in India, Sundeep is in California, and Dr. Ponnappa is in the East Coast. But I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So thank you for making time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, how did you respond to all of the reactions that came in as soon as the pictures went viral? Were you expecting any sort of backlash at all?
When we first decided to have media cover our wedding, we knew that it would garner a lot of attention. We knew that there would be a lot of people that would find, the joy in celebrating our union with us, but we also knew that it might be controversial. But we didn't necessarily invite the media for ourselves. We invited the media to really reach out to the Indian community, the community on a global level. And when I say community, I'm referring to the LGBTQIA plus community throughout the globe that anything is possible. They will find love one day. And when they do find love, they could also have a marriage ceremony how they choose. And there are a lot of people that are still struggling to come out of the closet, whether it's related to cultural reasons that many Indians can relate to, family reasons that many Indians can relate to, or other reasons. There is hope. And we wanted to show them that anything is possible and that it does get better.
Dr. Ponnappa, was this the same reaction with you as well? But I want your comment to the clarification that came in from Kodava Samaj as well. They essentially say that they were only commenting on the traditions followed.
Yeah, I'm just like how I can now formally say my husband said, I'm very much on the same page as to what we were expecting, why we did this, and ultimately, I think actually very pleased with where this conversation now has led to today, and the fact that we're all here talking about it. Specifically about the Kodava reaction, Kodava Samaj precedent reaction, I think, if we were to look at it, there were two separate reactions. I think the first reaction is what caught everybody's attention because of the nature of the words that were used in it. They were, in our assessment, in Sundeep and my assessment, and in everybody else's assessment, clearly very, very discriminatory, very homophobic, calling for separation, calling for termination of rights within a family, asking me to give up my last name, saying that using archaic terms like ostracizing from the community. So there was no, there was even a veil to guise the homophobia and the discrimination. I just learned about the clarification that now it's, we don't question their personal choice and their belief, and that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about the Kodava attire, being used, which, like Sundeep said, I would say it was very important for us to show all facets of our identity. And one facet of every person's individual identity is their ethnicity, their cultural and traditional origins. And us living here in America and knowing that the Kodavas are such a small community, and their customs, traditions, jewelries, clothes are not freely available, as would be the case, with other traditional Indian jewelry and outfits. And Sundeep and I personally put in a lot of work behind the scenes, along with help from his extended family, who've been wonderful, my brother back in India, to coordinate to even get all that we put together. So in our humble opinion, our aim was to retain the spirit of what the Kurg traditions would be. And yes, may not have been the 100% pomp and glory of a Kurg wedding. But then again, hey, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
I want Sandeep to come in on this, because this is one of the statements that came in later, the clarification that came in later, which said that we have no rights to question a legal gay wedding. I'm just expressing that Kodava traditions followed has hurt my mind. This is what the president of Madikeri Kodava Samaj said. And the point that a lot of people are also making, saying that this is an individual choice. Sandeep?
It's a choice to have a traditional wedding ceremony. And it's very important to both Sharath and I to really highlight how we were raised. I was raised as a Sikh Punjabi, and it was very important to me to have a traditional Punjabi Sikh wedding ceremony. Sharath was raised as a Kurg, and it was very important for us to make sure his culture was also signified, because we're accustomed to having wedding ceremonies that we attend for couples that choose to get married. So why couldn't we have the same option for a wedding ceremony? So we chose to have that ceremony, so we followed through on that, and we made our fantasy a reality by having wedding ceremonies that we were accustomed attending to, that were very important to the both of us. Now, in regards to the statement, I would just say that it's a masked statement that is filled with discriminatory words. And at the end of the day, people have the choice to make if they're going to be on the right side of history or the wrong side of history. And Sharath and I are living our truths every single day. We have been fighting for equal rights since the day we were born, and we have been faced with different levels of bullying. And this is just another form of masked bullying that a politician is trying to make. But this issue isn't about politics. This is a social issue fighting for equal rights. And everyone in India can relate to the fighting for equal rights every single day of their lives.
And you made a very beautiful statement, and that was part of the statement that you released soon after this happened as well. You said, we knew that there would be dissenters, but we've literally been fighting against homophobia and for acceptance since the day we were born. Would you be able to share some of those experiences? And either one of you can take this question while growing up, either with your parents or friends or society in general, some of the experience that you've had.
This is a very emotional question you're asking. And, we struggle with this every single day here in the United States when when same-sex marriage became legal by the Supreme Court. It was an emotional day. So, being looked at by the Supreme Court as, being legally able to have a wedding ceremony meant so much personally that, it was a possible reality that I would be able to have that I could share that with someone and, share it with the world. So, that's just one example of the discrimination that is an institutionalized discrimination that was built in here in the United States that has since been overturned. So there's a lot of instances of, dealing with backlash for being who we are. And, we're both in our mid to late 30s now, and we're done trying to fit into other people's boxes. And we're just living our truth and we're living our own lives how we see fit.
Dr. Ponnappa, anything you want to share with us? And how did your families, for instance, react when you decided to get married?
One of the core features of, that's unique when you are from the LGBTQIA plus community is this aspect of fitting in, right? There is a preconceived notion and a preconceived idea from members of society, even as members of the LGBTQIA plus community, like who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to walk and how you're supposed to talk and how you're supposed to express yourself. So that level of discrimination hits you at the very core of your existence. All of us are under one umbrella, and it's easy to love. It doesn't take a lot of effort to love. It takes a lot of effort to divide and to hate. And so that's my message in support of what my husband just said as well.
And yes, I'm going to toss in a personal question as well here, because the pictures that we saw were really, really beautiful. I was like, wow, this is so cute. So if you can, perhaps share your love story with us. How did you guys meet and fall in love?
My husband tells this beautifully. So I'm going to chip in, but I'm going to let him lead.
Oh, great. Thanks, Sharath. So from my understanding, we found each other when I was in Machu Picchu, Peru, and I was actually traveling during Christmas break in 2019. So I was traveling, I went to Machu Picchu, I took a picture and I posted it on Instagram. And Sharath had, the bug to travel. So he was looking at different pictures of Peru because his neighbor that lives in the same building as him was also traveling in Peru near the time that I was. So Sharath discovered my post of me at Machu Picchu and he was intrigued. So then he clicked on my picture, clicked on my profile, saw the pictures on my profile, and he was still intrigued. And for some reason, he decided to follow me on Instagram. So I didn't really notice his follow immediately. I, was traveling, so I was in vacation mode. But fast forward a few weeks later, I was traveling in Seattle, and I had an experience with a cab driver who said something about having an Indian name but not looking Indian. And this is a constant discriminatory comment that is made towards me all the time. And so I immediately, was upset by that I posted it on Instagram. So Sharath was upset about it too, and he felt compelled to comment about my post. So he did. He decided to write a heated response, obviously in support of what I just went through, but also to share his relatable experiences and sent me a message. So in the Instagram world, this is known as sliding into someone's DMs. And Sharath hates this phrase, but it's correct. So Sharath slid into my DMs and we started talking then. So I then looked at his profile and I was like, whoa, this guy is very, upset about my experience. So then I started looking at his pictures and, there was a immediate attraction. And I was impressed with his pictures and, trying to get a window into his life. So then I followed him back. And then we started chatting on Instagram, which transitioned into FaceTime and text messages. And here we are today.
Awesome. That's so beautiful. I have one last question for you before I, let you guys go. One of the most powerful thing, the things that you've said in your statement, and that's something that I thought was really beautiful, was that change is inevitable, that mindsets will evolve, and history is proof of this. And this is something that I want to draw back to India per se, because we saw Section 377 being tossed into the bin in 2018. However, gay marriages are still not legal in India. So do you see that changing as well? And how soon do you think that will happen? Because we've seen now in Delhi High Court, there seems to be some ray of hope, because there is a plea in Delhi High Court seeking legal rights of members of the community to get married. So the Delhi High Court, we understand, has issued a notice to the government already. The next hearing is on the 8th of January. So do you believe that this is a beginning of a new journey? And I want both of you to answer that question.
So I'm going to chime in first. So right before this call, I saw it on Instagram and I shared it with Sharath that the Delhi High Court just told the government lawyers that this isn't an issue between a couple. This is an issue that is impacting all members of the LGBTQI plus community within India. And, you know, we don't know how the High Court is going to rule. But what we do know is that we are all humans first. We all are people that should have equal rights all across the globe, all over the spectrum of what's right and what's wrong. And if you look across the world, you will see that change has been happening where, you know, members of the LGBTQI plus community are getting acceptance, are getting what is rightfully, you know, expected as a human. So do I think the change will happen in India? Absolutely. You know, Indians fought for independence from the British Empire, and that was granted after a long fight. You know, history proves that this is just another element that will be accepted. And the acceptance is long overdue. And if you read the history books, there has been instances that people that are, you know, well known in history did have same-sex relations. So it's right in the history books that this has been in existence for generations. So it's just a matter of time before India, you know, the High Court rules that, you know, of course it's legal, you know, and everyone around the world is waiting for that ruling.
Dr. Ponnappa, do you also believe that it's only a matter of time?
I do. I do. I think, much like what Sundeep said, I think we're living it, right? You know, the fact that the three of us can have this conversation on such a public platform is proof of this. We are in the midst of that change, you know, and I've often, we often talk about this, Sundeep and I, and also with our friends. Um, Despite the pushback, despite the discrimination, we're living in very exciting times where a lot of that change is actually, it's gathering steam. The fact that the Delhi High Court can entertain a case like this without just dismissing it, the fact that things were tossed out in 2018 with Section 377 and things like that are just proof that especially for the LGBTQI plus community, that change is inevitable. I think there's a responsibility on all of us to make sure that the momentum is sustained. And I think that's a huge role and a vital role that all of us can play in kind of furthering that change.
Very, very well said. And that's essentially the message. The message is love, and two, that mindsets will have to evolve, that change is inevitable. And like Dr. Ponnappa and Sundeep were pointing out, that it's only a matter of time. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Sundeep and Dr. Ponnappa, thank you so much for talking to us.